the green illuminated signs, and please leave in an orderly fashion. And if you need the toilet facilities, then they're just out in the main hall there. Just to let you know that we are live streaming this event tonight to the vote.je YouTube account, and there'll be a recording available. There's a mobile phone, just on cue. But we'll be streaming. So warm welcome to everyone who is joining us online. Thank you for being with us. Just to let you know that you can access closed captions, which are being generated live, and you can turn those on by clicking the button at the bottom of your screen. I am sure you are all very aware, but you can only vote for 9 of the candidates who have put themselves forward for this role as senator. There are 9 island-wide seats available. So your candidates are going from, well, your right through to your left: Mark Boliat, Steve Luce, Lyndon Farnham, Serena Kirsten Guthrie, Guy DeFay, Bernard Place, Tom Binney, Elaine Miller. Sam Mezek, who is Reform. The other candidates preceding that were all independent. The other independent candidates are Alan McLean, Helen Miles, Martin Aliga, Carl Bush, Mary Lehegara, Alan Brecken, Ian Gorst, and Alan Lepavu. Everyone has drawn lots this evening, so we're mixing things up each time that we come for the Senators Hustings, so that we've all drawn lots, and that's where they're sitting tonight accordingly. What we're going to do is start with a short speech from each candidate, which will be 2 minutes. That's what's agreed this evening. And then we're going to take questions from the audience. What has also been agreed is that they would like to prioritise parishioners first. So we will do that in the first instance, and that we won't be taking any questions from candidates or elected members this evening in the interest of fairness. When we do come to questions, we please ask that you state your name and also where you live. And if we can also ask that you hold the microphone nice and close and not down here, because we won't be able to hear you. Thank you. Okay, you are going to hear 2 bells ringing each time when the candidates speak. They will get a 30-second warning, and then they will get a warning at 2 minutes, that is the time to stop speaking. And we ask that you will stop straight away when we do that. Okay, that's it. Let's get going. Mark Boliat, over to you to start this evening. Thank you.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be in the parish that was the home of my parents for 50 very happy years. My career has taken me from a beach cafe at St. Ballard's to a barman at the Smugglers Inn, to chief executive and chair roles in government, the public sector, business and charities. Does that mean I know all the answers? Absolutely not. Far from it. But I think I know how to ask the right questions, how to work with others to tackle big issues, to take good decisions and to ensure that they're implemented. So what's my vision for the island? In a sentence, I want it to be what it's always been, a fantastic, very special island community, but one that is outward looking. My policies briefly: our starting point, the government is spending more than it's earning. Many people's finances are under pressure. Cost of living is a real problem for them. We do not want to increase taxes. That means we have to go for economic growth. And to do that, we need to remove the barriers to growth. And with apologies to the planning minister, the planning system is one of those barriers. It gets in the way of sensible development. It gets in the way of people wanting to change their homes. We can change that without damaging our wonderful environment. And our regulatory system is over the top. As the Chief Minister says, we regulate like a big country. We're not. We need to have proportionate regulation that tackles real problems. And we must never forget that the finance industry accounts for 45% of our economy, 2/3 of our tax revenue. We need to ensure it remains competitiveness. A quick passion of mine: social mobility. Life chances are largely determined by the age of 5. 64% of children only in Jersey start school at the expected stage of development. Some good work's been done on early years, but we need to do much more so that our young people get the best start in life, and we can ease the pressures on young families struggling with housing costs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Luce.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Steve Luce, and I've had the honour to be a deputy for St Martin's for the last 15 years. During that time, I've also had the privilege to represent you as a member of a minister in government. The team manager here picked me a couple of years ago to be part of his team. I'd like to think I'm a team player, and I've done the job and played in the position he put me in. I'm standing for senator because I believe ministers should be senators, and if I'm lucky enough to get re-elected, I would put myself forward to be again the environment minister, because there's jobs that I've started that I'd very much like to continue to do, and the environment is something I'm really passionate about. I support farming and fishing, and I support the island plan, which is going to be a new island plan in the next 4 years of government. It's going to be hugely important. With reference to St Bullards, I'd just like to say two things about two parts of this parish. The first one's about St Aubin. We're in the middle of a project which will have a conservation area in St Aubin. I am hugely passionate about St Aubin. I go there as often as I can. I think it's a wonderful area. It's great for tourism, it's lively, it's got lots of heritage, you can look out to sea, the boats, everything really gets me excited. It's important we keep it like that, which is why we're developing a conservation area there. Keep businesses thriving, keep them profitable, but keep the listing, keep the history there for the future. The other one I want to talk about is in this area of Quennevais. Not many months ago, Deputy Helen Miles, your deputy, came to see me. We sat down and discussed how we could move forward with the precinct. It's such a potential site that can do such great things. We've made a start. We want to carry on. That will be part of the West of Ireland planning framework, which we will do in the next year or so as well. There's lots of other things that we need to do and help with St Bullards and the west of the island. We've delivered the school.
Thank you. That's time.
Oh, I didn't hear the first bell, sorry.
I am just being asked if all of the audience could turn their phones to aeroplane mode, if possible. Is that correct from a technical perspective? Just because it's interfering with the live connection. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your cooperation with that. Thank you. Let me just get my timer ready before we start. Okay. Lyndon Farnham, thank you very much. You may start when you're ready. I'll start the timer when you start speaking.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm pleased to be in St Brelade. I was in my old school, except I was in the old Quennevais. By way of background, my name is Lyndon Farnham. I was born here in Jersey. I've lived here all my life. I raised my family here, and I'm standing for election again because I care deeply about the kind of island we are shaping for future generations. Around the world, we're seeing economic instability, rising costs, conflict and pressure on living standards. And we feel those pressures too here in Jersey. Since becoming Chief Minister in 2024, I have worked to restore stability across government, strengthen discipline in the management of our public finances, and get government working together again to deliver on the issues that matter most. We have made some good progress, but there is more to do. One of the most important and urgent matters we must rectify is to ensure that Jersey can once again become a place where young islanders can realistically aspire to own a home, raise their families here, and choose to stay here because they feel confident about the future. I'm optimistic about the future, and I think we should all feel more positive from time to time because we are, a resilient island with enormous strengths, a strong a community of talented, hard-working people, a successful local economy, a clean and safe environment, a beautiful place to live. But in these challenging times, I believe Jersey needs leadership that is steady, experienced and forward-looking, honest about the challenges, takes responsibility and gets things done. And I believe our best years lie ahead of us if we work hard and have the confidence and determination to build them together. Thank you all for being here this evening. I hope I can persuade you to consider me for one of your votes, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Serena Kirsten Guthrie.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Serena, and for those of you who don't know me, I am the ex-England netball captain and Commonwealth Games gold medalist. I love my career. It took me all over the world, and I had the privilege of working with some of the best in the business. But I knew when it was time to retire, there was really only one place I wanted to come back to. And it was here in Jersey. So I was struck to find how expensive it was as a young person when I came back here. And I've had lots of friends and family leave. And it has got me thinking, do I have a role to play here in public service? And that's because there's one thing that I learned during my career as an elite athlete. And, you know, from team sport, when a team is constantly losing, usually it isn't the failure of one individual, it's the failure of a team to work together effectively. And I kind of think that's what Jersey feels like at the minute. It feels like we're not working effectively enough together. It feels like we're a team that's losing. We aren't helping enough people through the cost of living. Our government hasn't got a grip on government spending, and our island isn't making enough money. And this next government is going to be under huge pressure to grow the economy and try to spend less. There are a few, personal passions that I'd love to be able to achieve if elected. I care deeply about the good that sport can do for our children, and I want to put PE teachers back into primary schools. I also care about preventative health, so we can nip things in the bud, save money, and save lives. I am interested in bringing a cheaper supermarket here. Aldi and Lidl are knocking on the door, but we need to work with planning and ease restrictions to allow it to happen. And how good would it be to actually start helping people with the cost of living? We can do this together if we work as a team, but you are in charge of electing a group of candidates to take responsibility and deliver, and I'll bring that mindset. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we continue, we can see that there's some people at the door. If you would like to come in, there are seats available. There's some down at the front, there's some up at the back there. So please do feel that you don't need to stand there and come and get comfortable. Thank you. You put your hand up if you've got a seat spare next to you so people can see. Thank you. Oh, there's lots of people with seats spare. Great. Thank you very much. We'll just let them sit down, Guy, just one moment. Thank you. Okay. Wonderful. We'll continue then, and the timer will start. So, Guy Defay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Guy. And many years ago, I used to live at Lamoy, but not at Her Majesty's pleasure, I should add. You may have seen me up here not so long ago. I came up here for the meeting on PFAS. It's something I keep my eye on. I'm afraid you're all being somewhat conned at the moment. You're all being told it's terribly safe. Well, international guidelines have been getting lower and lower. I understand the UK is going to ban PFAS completely, and just because it conforms to Jersey guidelines doesn't make it safe. It just makes it legal. So I'll be watching that. And by the way, the next thing we should all be looking out for, although I think you've got a great supermarket just down the road, is what's in the food we buy. At my age, and I wish I'd been taught this when I was at school, I'm being told it's the food you eat that keeps you healthy. It's absolutely critical, and we're eating an awful lot of food that is no good for us at all. Now, some of you may remember many years ago, I put forward a plan for a reclamation scheme just next to St Aubin Harbour. Nothing happened, but that's what I do. I'm an ideas person. I put the idea out there. If it flies, it flies. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I think it could be a runner. And included in that idea was using your converted railway station, Parish Hall and St Aubin's. Let's redevelop Quennevais. I'm up for this new plan. What a fantastic spot to be owned by the parish, income coming in, and you could build a really brilliant parish hall up there, leaving you with a fabulous little boutique hotel overlooking the harbour. There you go. That's something for you parishioners to mull over. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bernard Place.
Good evening. My name is Bernard Place, and I'm standing as an independent candidate for Senator because I believe that islanders are looking for practical and sensible answers to the pressures we face, especially the cost of living, housing and healthcare. Now, after 40 years in public service, including many years as a registered nurse, I've worked from the front line to executive board level. I understand both the human impact of public services and just how difficult they are to run well. Jersey needs now to focus less on promises and more on making services work better. Healthcare is our largest public service and one of the biggest pressures on public finances. Islanders rightly want spending that supports doctors, nurses and frontline care, not unnecessary bureaucracy and duplication. Before asking islanders to pay more, we should first ask whether services can be delivered more effectively and more sensibly. That means better organised services and better value for money that islanders already contribute. This election is also an opportunity to widen the experience and perspectives in the States Assembly. Now, I respect those already serving, but there is value in adding practical public service experience to our Assembly. Many people who read my Jersey Evening Post articles describe my approach as sensible. Now, I'll take that because after 40 years in public service, I've learned that the loudest answer is not always the best one. The best solutions are usually practical, measurable, and sensible. And that's the approach I hope to bring to the States Assembly as one of your 9 senators.
Thank you. Tom Binney.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start by explaining why I'm here. 4 years ago, I was deeply disenchanted by the island's direction of travel, so I decided that I had to do one of 2 things, either turn my back completely or put my money where my mouth was and do something about it. And for my sins, I chose the latter. And 4 years on, with 18 months as Minister for Infrastructure, then just over 2 years as Health Minister, I find myself trying to get support for a second term. Throughout my life, I've always found myself working to a plan with the scope and scale often increasing over time. The process usually starts by looking carefully at the situation from as many angles as possible, understanding the people, the culture, the operating structure, the overall framework, or lack of it, and deciding how it should be reconstructed, where it needs to go, and how it should get there. It's a very basic concept, but it never ceases to amaze me how few people adopt it in their political lives. There are plenty of disparate ideas, but seldom an overall plan. Anyway, it's the approach that I've taken with Jersey's health system. It now has an improved senior management team, a plan, improved funding, and a timetable. Being on the inside for the past 4 years, I've also gained sufficient insight to develop an idea of what Jersey itself should become, how the plan should be put together, where it should go, and how it should get there. It actually involves, perhaps controversially, utilising some of our strategic reserve, rebooting our finance industry, improving our town centre, new sports facilities, better travel connections with Europe, and easing our planning laws considerably. I'd very much like to develop that plan, and that's the principal reason that I'm standing again. Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine Miller.
Hello everyone, my name is Elaine Miller and it's lovely to be in St Brelade this evening. I was first elected as a deputy in 2022. Since then I've been Treasury Minister and Minister for Social Security. Before being elected, I had a successful career in law. I was a Jersey advocate and the first woman to hold the office of Viscount. I try to find effective solutions to problems and to make sensible, thoughtful decisions. I can get things done and I've worked hard to deliver positive results. I brought the proposition that reinstated the role of Senator. I reduced the cost of GP visits by £20 and increased pensioner benefits. I addressed cost of living issues by increasing the community cost bonus and by short-term reductions in social security. I've supported the important work to ensure that our financial services industry remains competitive. The cost of living remains a challenge. The cost of childcare in particular can put a family home out of reach, and I'd like to find better ways of providing for children. Alongside financial services, we must enable all businesses to thrive and grow our economy. I'll aim to reduce complex regulation and to promote growth by removing some of the barriers to starting a new business. It's important we continue to control government spending and remove inefficiency. This will help us put more money into reserves to ensure future resilience. I promote a population strategy that plans for the needs of young and old into the future, including education, careers, health and housing, particularly for older people. Above all, we have to focus on finding solutions that are right for Jersey. I will continue working hard to deliver effective outcomes that benefit our community and our economy. I will always put the interests of Jersey first. I do hope that you will vote for me as one of your senators. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam Mezek.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Mezek. I'm Jersey born and raised before studying law in London. And for the last 12 years, I've been a member of the States of Jersey, where most recently I've served as the Minister for Housing. I spent today in Don Farm meeting voters, and I spoke to a couple who I thought were symbolic of the issue that Jersey is facing right now. They recounted to me their early adulthood that they recall in Jersey, where it felt like it was a place that was on the rise, where if you worked hard, you'd be able to afford your home, to provide for your family and live in comfort and enjoy yourself as well. But today they're concerned about their children and grandchildren because their early adulthood has been characterised by a stagnating economy, a freeze in real terms earnings, and public finances that have now become unsustainable. I think that it's got to be the job of the next government of Jersey to turn this around. And I believe that we need 3 points that will do this. I think the next government must address the cost of living, we must prepare Jersey for the challenges of the future, and we must restore accountability to government. And of course, all of that must be underpinned by a strong economy. I hope that in my 12 years in the States, I've proven myself to be an effective politician, a decisive minister, and a capable leader of a team. And I am a team player. I believe I've worked effectively in the current coalition government, where I delivered a successful first-time buyers scheme and delivered complex legislation through the states to improve life for the 45% of islanders who rent their homes. And I'm really proud to be standing alongside party colleagues in this parish, John Young and Monty Tadyer, who themselves bring great expertise and experience. It's only by working together that we'll be able to turn the tide and make Jersey a place that everybody can look forward to a decent future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alan McLean.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jersey isn't working. People know it, they feel it, and they're paying for it every single day. The weekly shop costs more, housing costs more, frankly, everything costs more. People are working harder than ever, yet too many feel they are falling behind. And while families tighten their belts, government is doing the opposite. Bigger, more expensive, more bureaucratic. Last year alone, government spent £118 million more than it earned. This is not sustainable. There is no magic money tree. There is only your money. I served as Economic Development Minister during the global financial crisis. We merged the ports and saved £1 million per annum of taxpayers' money. We created Digital Jersey. We backed local enterprise. We improved connectivity by introducing EasyJet and re-establishing the Heathrow route. I later served as Treasury Minister. We controlled spending, balanced budgets, and helped more students access university. We need that approach again. We need discipline. We need restructuring. Government should focus on cutting waste. It must be creative and utilize technology to deliver smarter, faster public services, not simply grow bigger. We need a government that understands how to build a strong economy, removes unnecessary regulations and red tape and bureaucracy, encourages investment. A strong economy is not a luxury. It's what creates good jobs and pays the bills. It gives young people a future. I'm not standing because I need a political career. I'm returning to politics because I care deeply about this island. We need a Jersey that works for everyone, a more affordable Jersey. I'm confident that the best days can still lie ahead, but only if we have the courage,
discipline and leadership to make the right long-term decisions now. My name is Alan McLean, and please, I hope you can consider me for one of your 9 votes. Thank you.
Thank you. Helen Miles.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I do know a lot of faces in the room, but I'm Helen Miles, and I'm standing as an independent candidate. It's been a total privilege to serve as Deputy for St Brelade, to be your representative, and to do my best each day to improve life in our parish. 4 years ago, I said I'd establish a parish improvement project, and I delivered on that promise. The beautiful St Brelade work was thorough and extensive, producing clear recommendations for positive change. And I hope the Constable will work with the parish deputies to drive them forward. After years of inaction, I've kick-started the work to regenerate Les Quennevais Parade and Precinct. The precinct is a key part of life in St Brelade, and we shouldn't accept its continual decline. But there is now a clear proposition and pathway to deliver improvements. I've also pushed for improvements to the railway walk and to ensure that your voice was heard on the future of Le Creux, where we now have a fantastic community-centred initiative as the preferred bidder. Since 2022, I have served as Minister for Justice and Home Affairs, and I'm now chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel. And this has given me a very balanced experience of serving both in government and on scrutiny. As a minister, I established the Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force and delivered the Building a Safer Community framework to support early intervention and to reduce crime. I introduced a 3-year work permit for hospitality staff and negotiated a scheme to increase the number of French day trippers. On scrutiny, I led work to strengthen, preserve and improve our vital parish system. Island-wide, we face numerous challenges. We need to support lower-income families. We need to control state spending and live within our means. We live in a wonderful island, and with positive change, we can be optimistic about our future. Please do consider me for one of your votes on June the 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Martin Aliga.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. So, Martin is my name, as you've heard, and I am a childcare professional. I've been working in this area for 15 years. However, today I'm not going to talk too much about my policies. I'm going to focus on one thing because I only have 2 minutes. So let's look at protecting our children against early mental health and addictive conditions that come through screen introduction to our young people. Smartphones are being introduced to kids at 3 years of age. How fair is that? What are we doing to our children? I am seeking for your investment. Your vote has a value. It's not just give me your vote. I am asking you to invest your vote because why? When you invest in someone, you expect a return. So the return will be with what you'll see in 4 years when you put me in the States Assembly. Modern apps are designed algorithmically to attract kids and push them mentally hooked to these screens. In a long run, these kids have no skills of interacting with anybody face-to-face. They lack interpersonal skills, and yet we want our children to grow up, children who are going to take over from us. If you look around this room here, who is coming after us? I am 47. The average age group of this room could be about 50. I want to say that our island is in dire need of young people that will grow up, will be raised and supported and invested in to take over from us. I would like to say that there are enough studies around that we can see. The MRI scan screener children has shown physical white matter reduction due to overuse of screens. How early, how soon, how quick can we make this decision to save our kids? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carl Bush.
Evening, everyone. I'm Carl Bush. I'm standing for Senator. I really do like St Brelade so much that I stood here in the last election. I am a huge advocate of health, well-being and care. Care particularly a subject very, very close to my heart. We, with the local community, run an active inclusion project called Step 55, and I'm also a big advocate of social enterprise. Social enterprise, through our project, is empowering the community who are rich in skills and experience to share those skills and experience to help with what we have a big problem with, which is inactivity in our population. Only 54% of us attain the recommended level of activity per week. And through our project, we address this issue by empowerment. Now, where does that lead us to? It leads us to poor health, and poor health has a huge, huge impact on our health budget. If we can reduce if we can reduce poor health by 1%, we will save possibly 7 million on the annual budget. Now, just to finish, there is a lot of experience in the room, but I also come with experience. I held elected local government position as a cabinet member for environmental services back in the UK. So I do have experience of government. I know how government runs. And what I want to do is I want to use that experience to...
Thank you. Mary Lehegara.
Good evening. Born and raised in Jersey to a farming family, career path in financial roles followed by 25 years in policing. Cross-section of roles, ranks and responsibilities, promoted as the first female inspector in Jersey. Joining the State Assembly in 2018, working in Social Security Scrutiny and Health Scrutiny Panel Chair, we delivered many reviews, including mental health, securing funding for a crisis bed at Orchard House. The last 2 years, I've been serving as the Justice and Home Affairs Minister, delivering on the Violence Against Women and Girls recommendations and other public safety laws. I believe that team working is one of my strengths. In my policing career, working in partnership with public and other agencies, I led teams to deliver results in matters ranging from community initiatives, including antisocial behaviour at Winston Churchill Park, Les Quennevais, introducing letters to parents, commanding critical incidents such as major public events, serious road traffic collisions and suspicious deaths. I have employed this collaborative approach to my political roles, both in scrutiny and as a minister, working with teams to improve public services and advancing legislative reforms. Addressing the cost of living is clear, but we need to work on our resilience rather than short-term fixes. Whilst the finance industry provides a huge amount of our revenue and needs to be supported, we need to be more self-sufficient. Appreciating that we can't fully provide all our needs, we have to work on what we can achieve, produce more, export less, and also reducing our plastics and transport costs will improve our environment. Support island upskilling programmes and continued development to further education is necessary so that we can promote on-island talent. This may encourage islanders to return following studies. Let's say yes to those individuals. Even if they don't lack the experience, we can develop them further, and let's say yes.
Thank you. Alan Brecken.
Thank you. Good evening. Can I ask you to fish this out? I'm going to refer to some figures in there. The green bit highlighted shows expenditure in 2022 of 218 million. The pink bit shows in 2023 this increased to 257 million, and that's an increase of over 38 million pound compared with 2022, which equates to 746,000 pound a week or 106,000 pound a day over the year before. That's enough to have given every man, woman and child in Jersey £1,000 a day for the whole year. Note, this is only the year-on-year increase. On the back page, I've listed who the ministers and assistant ministers are, because that's what they've delivered us for us. Who's responsible? Who's accountable? Apparently nobody is, and that, to me, is not acceptable. Take that home and have a good look. Those figures are astounding. Against that spending background, I know, speaking to people in St. Brelade, they're concerned about medical treatment. They're waiting a long time for an appointment. Some have been cancelled, postponed, changed, whatever. And the waiting list in 2024 was 812, and despite many millions pumped into the health system, in 2025 it's now up to 1,307. Some people are paying, but they've already paid in 30 or 40 years or more. They shouldn't have to pay again. And I have some real concerns about the amount of money that's been spent on technical spending. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian Gorst.
Good evening. I'm Ian Gorst, an independent candidate, and I'm standing so that I can continue to be a strong voice for Jersey over the next 4 years, defending our interests, promoting our economy, and building a sustainable future for our community. These are, of course, challenging times, and they call for experienced, calm, and serious leadership. I have built strong relationships with governments in the UK, Europe, and further afield. This has enabled me to support our financial services, agriculture, dairy, digital, and creative industries to grow and find new markets. I also want to drive forward our competitiveness strategy so that we deliver economic growth and embrace innovation in the face of increased global competition. A strong and diversified economy supports local jobs and pays for good public services. In recent years, government has grown at an unsustainable rate. I have always been, and I will continue to be, a voice for restraint to control public spending. Government needs to be an enabler, interfering less frequently in our lives and focusing on improving frontline services, including health, education, and policing. To ease cost of living pressures, I would freeze duties, raise tax thresholds, and increase allowances, as I did when I was Treasury Minister. We must continue to promote consumer choice, including by finally delivering a new budget supermarket. Jersey has always adapted to changing times. With strong, effective, and proven leadership, we will and can do so again. I ask for one of your votes on June the 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Lepavu.
Good evening. My name is Alan Lepavu, and I'm standing because Jersey needs practical, community-focused leadership at a time when many islanders are under real pressure. Through my work with the Brelade Foundation, young people, families, and community organisations, I've seen both the strength of our island and the strain many are under. Too many people are struggling with the cost of living, too many families feel locked out of housing, and too many young people are questioning whether their future is here. That's not sustainable, and it needs urgent, practical action. I'm not a career politician, and I'm not driven by ideology. I believe in listening, working collaboratively, and focusing on what works. I believe Jersey works best when three parts move together. A strong economy driven by commerce, an effective, focused government that produces policies and legislation that improves the lives of our people, and a supported charity and community sector properly funded where it delivers essential services. You won't always agree with every decision I make, but you will know it's thoughtful, balanced, and rooted in what's best for our community now and into the future. If elected, I will work hard, stay accessible, and focus on an outcomes-based accountability approach. I'd be grateful for your support, but above all, please use your vote for a better Jersey built together. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's the speeches. It is now time to open up for questions. A microphone is going to be passed around by Wendy, so thank you for helping us this evening with that. We ask that questions are brief, please, so we can get through as many as possible. And I will ask you to shorten your question if you're not getting to the point. Questions may not be offensive in any way, and if they are, then you may be asked to stop talking and leave the room. So a reminder that we're going to prioritise parishioners, so they're the priority, and then we can open up to other parishes if there is time. We will not be taking any questions this evening from candidates or non-elected members. Your question must be able to be answered by all 17 candidates. That's really important. It's not just a question to the one or maybe those who've stood before. So please give your name and where you're from. Please hold the microphone close. And what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 questions, and there's going to be 90 seconds for each of the candidates to answer. Then we'll take 2 more, and we'll go from there until 9 o'clock. Okay, so let's begin. If you'd like to ask a question, please put your hands in the air. I'm just going to wait a moment so I can take a good look around. Anything from this side of the room? There's a gentleman close to you, so if you'd like to go to him first. Thank you, Wendy.
Good evening, everyone. First, I'd just like to thank Elaine Miller for bringing us all here to vote on an island-wide mandate. Which
Can you just state your name first? Sorry, and where you live. Sorry,
David
apologies.
I live in St Bullards. Elaine stood up against the perceived tide and had the courage to bring this proposition forward, so thank you, Elaine. But my real question is a lot about increased regulation, etc., and saving money. So can the panel answer what the logic is in bringing in yet another quango, the Public Services Ombudsman, when we have a perfectly good States Complaints Board that just needs compellability to force ministers before the board?
Thank you. Is there anyone else from this side of the room? And then we'll move over to this side of the room on the next section. No? Okay, Wendy, if you wouldn't mind coming round. We can come to you. Louder on the microphone. Okay, if you hold it nice and close, then it should be. Is that better from me as well? Okay, thank you. This gentleman here, thank you. Your name, first of all, and where you live, thank you.
My name is Johnny Hay. I live at Pettypaw. I'd be intrigued to find out from the candidates about Fort Regent, you know, the classic sort of conundrum. Prospectively, there's going to be hundreds of millions of pounds spent on Fort Regent. What sort of guarantee do we have that what is put up there is going to be able to pay for itself in terms of ongoing expenses?
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll start the questions, Elaine, on this with you, and then we'll go down this side, and then we'll come to Sam and go down this side. Let me just start the timer. Bear with me one moment. Okay, you're on. That's good.
I think it's probably well known that I am not supportive of a public service ombudsman. I think it will add cost, and unnecessary cost and burden to the public service. It will grow like Topsy, and before we know it, it will cost us 3 times what we thought it would cost at the start. I think we need to sit down, look at what the problem is, and try and find a better way of addressing it. I'm not sure anybody has really consulted with the panel yet to see what their views are. We should certainly start by sitting down with the panel, seeking their views, trying to really understand what the perception is with the complaints handling process in Jersey, and do something that's right for Jersey and not just copy a body that exists in other bigger countries. In terms of Fort Regent, very good question, sir. I think it really depends what ultimately goes there, how well it's used by the public. There will be a very large consultation going on. My concern about Fort Regent is that a lot of the vision is really driven by nostalgia and what it used to be in the past. And we have to hope that the young people of today and the residents of today will want to go to the fort every single weekend the way people did in the past. That's a question, have we got the right things in there? And there will be extensive consultation to try and confirm that before work continues. Thank you.
Thank you.
In answer to question 1, I'm not in favour of an ombudsman. I've been through the complaints board process successfully, as it happens, and To put it crudely, when I went back to the people that had caused the problem in government, I basically was greeted with two fingers. It was get on with it. We don't have to do anything and we won't. I think that's appalling. And I think we should have better systems within government to stop things getting to the complaints board in the first place. Anything that gets to the complaints board the complaints board should rule against, because it's the wrong thing, because we've done our job properly. So that's my opinion on the first one. I'm probably going to make myself very unpopular when I talk about Fort Regent. It's £110 million that at the moment we haven't got. If I had my own way, I think I'd spend some money returning it into a fort. And if we're going to spend that, the remainder of the 110 million, I'd put it into purpose-built facilities elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We need to look further upstream as to why so many complaints need an ombudsman in the first place. And certainly on the doorstep, the kind of things that I'm hearing is that the government's or the services are not seeing it from the person's perspective. It's a simple thing to do. And what happens is that people are being then treated discourteously and disrespectfully, and the whole thing doesn't get put back into a manageable issue at local level, so then it escalates. In terms of Fort Regent, I think there are two elements to this. There's returning the heritage asset into a safe place, and the reason why we need to spend £40 million of the first tranche is because very little has been spent for many, many decades, since the 80s. So we need to look at that. Whether it can ever be a going concern is the second part. And I think that £60 million is something which needs a much stronger case. But the heritage assets, yes, certainly we need to do something about that to make it safe and preserve it.
I'm so ancient, I went to Fort Regent before it was developed. I then attended Fort Regent regularly for the free swimming and the rock bands, and Fort Regent used to rock. I recently put in an application to develop Fort Regent and received a form that was clearly designed for major UK development companies and not at all for anyone local with a bright idea. My bright idea wasn't that clever. I just think that instead of replacing the swimming pool, we should put a 5-star hotel up there with the most fantastic views in the island. Virtually 360 degrees, out to sea, Echo Tower, Nuamo Point, and overlooking the town. It is the most obvious site for a fantastic hotel, the premier hotel in the island, with historic monument attached. Now, why we want to put a cinema in, I can't imagine. We're phasing it out down on the waterfront. But I'm afraid our government likes master plans. I disagree. I think that we should do Fort Regent in phases. And phase 1 is actually getting people into it. That has been the problem from day one. A fort is designed to keep people out, and we've never really got over it. The cable cars are an expensive disaster, and thank goodness nobody got killed. And as for quangos, don't start me.
Thank you, Guy.
Hard to follow that. Okay, so in answer to your first question, I don't think we need to be adding additional bureaucracy at a time when we're trying to make things more efficient. I think it will just end up costing more money and slow things down. We need to listen to people and treat people like human beings and lift the accountability within these processes. And I think the next government needs to look at how to do that a lot better. Fort Regent, yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because in theory, like everybody else, very nostalgic. I spent my childhood there. But for me, where I do get a little bit worried is that at the minute, we pay to exist on this island for young people and adults. You know, we shouldn't, as a taxpayer, we should not be using taxpayers' money to then make you pay extortionate amounts of money to enjoy a day out. And I think we need to have closer stakeholder consultation when it comes to the activities going on in there, and actually make sure that we are delivering a system that you are happy with as the taxpayer, and we can't afford another hospital debacle. We can't afford to pivot from this. So I do feel like we have to deliver. You do not deserve to have lots of more millions of your money spent on trying to change the fort. It's happening now. We have to commit to it, but we do have to listen to you as the taxpayers to make sure that we're putting in the right services for you to enjoy.
One of the first things the current government set out to do was decrease regulation, because we had become over-regulated. Financial services, planning, just two examples. A good example of what we're doing now is the Time to Win, a program which is looking at how we reset our financial services sector and how industry, government and regulator work more closely together to create a more competitive sector. And we need to extend that view across what we do in running our island. This government did not implement the Public Services Ombudsman. A report has been presented to the Assembly. We looked at how we could improve the current complaints process, but the Conservative estimated cost of running a public service ombudsperson, if we include health, is approaching £2 million a year. We can't afford that. We've got better priorities to do, but that's a matter for the next States Assembly. Fort Regent, we should be embarrassed about. We've let it rot. We have to spend at least 30 to 40 million anyway on making it safe if we did nothing else, and repairing or replacing the structure. I think there's a great opportunity, especially for young people who lack facilities, with leisure, concert hall, conference centre, room for hotel and other activities. It would be covered by blue chip tenants, and we've had some interest from good blue chip tenants with rent roll. But of course, it will all depend on people using it. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Like others have said, instigating an ombudsman is going to be hugely expensive. Millions of pounds will be needed. The complaints board can work. It will work, and it can do better. The problem we have in Jersey is, at the moment, we have a law of statutory nuisance. The bar to get over it is up here somewhere. It's almost impossible. What we need to do, and what I have committed to do if I'm lucky enough to be re-elected, is introduce a civil nuisance law into Jersey. So complaints do not have to be so serious for people to get action. That's really where we need to be. Statutory nuisance is so difficult to get to, it's almost impossible. As for Fort Regent, like others, I grew up there. We need to improve the access. It's clear, as Guy said, it was built as a fort, and it's a really good fort. Wonderful views, wonderful gardens, wonderful walks. It's a wonderful asset to the island. Whether we need to spend hundreds of millions, I'm not sure. But certainly the gardens and the walkways up there are second to none, and anybody who can get up there, help people get up there, tourists, islanders, use the facilities. We don't need to spend hundreds of millions to enjoy it and for the public to benefit from it.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Two very good questions. On the Ombudsman, I agree with Elaine Miller. I actually set up an Ombudsman scheme many years ago. I can guarantee it will cost at least 3 times the initial estimate, and it will begin making laws and actually becomes a regulatory body. So clearly the existing States Complaints Board has to be made to work better. But also we need to go back and say, why are there complaints? Is the culture in government working properly? Now, over the last few years, I've worked with many civil servants. I've had some wonderful examples of top quality work by civil servants, cooperation when questions are asked, and I've had the opposite. So I think we need to concentrate on getting the culture right in government. On Fort Regent, the question was, will it pay for itself? The answer is no. That was very clear from the proposition that actually has been made. But as others have said, we've actually got to get the structure right and repair the damage. After that, we need to look at every possibility on its merits as whether we can afford it if it's not going to pay for itself.
You had a further 30 seconds if you wanted it, but you finished. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Sam will come to you next on this line. Thanks.
Thank you. With an ombudsman, what is a good ombudsman? Is it one that provides a kind of threat of use that makes government departments behave themselves in the first instance, or is it one that receives lots of complaints and forces departments to fix things, which in the end saves money? It's a kind of paradox there. But if we're to go down that direction, we should be looking at other small territories for best practice. Gibraltar's got a very good Public Services Ombudsman. It's a small territory. That's the kind of thing we ought to be looking at, not like an English model where we would end up spending £5 million or whatever on it, and that would clearly be bad value for money. The chair of the States Complaints Board had a really good article in the Bailiwick Express recently where he talked about what could be done to improve the current process. Giving it a website might be a good thing so people actually know that it exists and know that it's something that they can engage with. That would at least start getting progress on that and hopefully be a good step forward. With Fort Regent, the problem is it's really expensive to just mothball it as well, because it's an old structure that if it is going to deteriorate, then it could end up being dangerous, and if bits are falling off, then that's going to be really expensive as well. So I think we do need to get on with the current plans. I hope that people will use it, and it will, I think, inspire young people to believe once again that this is an island where there will be things for them to do and enjoy themselves and not be so bored here that they look to other places to have their future instead.
Dave, thank you very much for the questions. I was involved in setting up the Financial Services Ombudsman. I have seen firsthand how it's grown and expanded, and it's got a life of its own. I think that governments are incapable of controlling the costs of these bodies once they start. They just run away and get a life of their own. I would be favouring the existing complaints board process. We need to look closely at that, understand the scale of the problem, and make sure we have a proportionate, practical and cost-effective solution where one's required, not £2 million on an ombudsman. It's absolutely crazy. As far as Fort Regent is concerned, Johnny, I think, is over there. I am quite surprised by the cost, and it's not going to be just the 40 million or the 110 million. It'll go on and on and on. There is no question that we need a facility which is delivering sport and entertainment for young people. It's really crucial that we retain our young people or give them something to come back to. So developing Fort Regent is key. I would be getting the private sector involved. I'd either look at a private public partnership or private sector and perhaps a long lease and give them some terms and conditions of what we require, the public require to be included, but otherwise they've got the run of the place. It's crazy the government's trying to do this. We're not very good at building and not very good at trying to make money at it. So let's get the experts on the job. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm probably going to make myself very unpopular, but I'm going to disagree with fellow deputies about the establishment of a public sector ombudsman, public services ombudsperson. It is in my manifesto. I think we need to remember that the recommendation for a public services ombudsman came out of the Jersey Independent Care Inquiry, and there's a lot of us around that still remember that. There's been a very comprehensive report by our fellow deputy in St Brelade, Deputy Scott, and she has raised issues of accountability, trust and confidence and independence. I don't necessarily think it is going to cost the 2 million, particularly if we don't go with health. It doesn't have to be as big as proposed. Other small jurisdictions, as Deputy Mesick said, do this very successfully, and it is something that I would absolutely support to make sure citizens have adequate address into the complaints that they have, of which there are many. In terms of Fort Regent, I'm really concerned about Fort Regent. If we do nothing, we end up with another La Folie. I certainly wouldn't advocate a lot of public spending. I simply don't think at this point we can afford it. I would advocate a public-private partnership. One thing I wouldn't agree with was the establishment of a casino at Fort Regent in order to pay the fees. Thank you.
I think one of the biggest problems we have in civil service, and having been there myself, I've noticed there's a lot of conflicts. There's a lot of conflicts that are happening, and how they are resolved in the government. The system takes a long time to resolve matters. And I'm wondering whether it's anything to do with the ombudsman or is the current conflict, the current committee that is available in the States. As a civil servant, I need to be careful what I say, because I'm on a part-time work break, so I need to watch what I say. However, I would be open for any, given the mandate to go on and work at a higher level, I would definitely need to listen and put in place something that serves the island we need to live in. As far as the Fort Regent is concerned, I hear from my wife, who spent a lot of time playing there, and I think it is important that we do something to the island that will help people remain here, people feel at home and belonging, and they don't have to run away looking for fun elsewhere. However, the story of the hospital, we shouldn't forget how long the hospital took and how much we spent in consulting for the hospital. This should not be another hole for sinking in money for nothing. Thank you.
Yes, my personal experience of an ombudsman in the UK is a very, very good one. If you remember the massive PPI scandal, the financial ombudsman over there did an absolutely tremendous job for the population. Ombudsman is a powerful body, and its decision is final. The defendant has to abide by the ombudsman's decision. So if we can afford it, I think it's going to be a very, very good thing. If we can't afford it, then we have to look at the options, obviously. So moving on to Fort Regent. I came to the island in 2018, so I've only seen it in its current state, but coming to the island and seeing it for the first time, is that my time? Oh, right, okay. Seeing it for the first time, you think, wow, what a location, what a building, why is it empty? And it's been empty for so long. There's so much that we could possibly do with it, but it also comes down to money. But I think public-private partnership is the only way that we're going to be able to develop it, because costs are going to go through the roof, through the planning and development.
I'm not supportive of a public service ombudsman. I'm concerned, and I've raised concerns in relation to other areas where we're trying to create another entity. We've already got far too many of them. I think what we do need, though, is to look at the system we have, but what we need to ensure is that whatever the findings are, that the department needs to implement those findings, and therefore the person gets a proper result. Jersey's infrastructure has suffered from long-standing underinvestment, as we all know, and unfortunately Fort Regent is one of those places. But we need to do something for people in the island, both young and old. And okay, we can reminisce about what it was like before, but I genuinely believe we need to do something with Fort Regent, whatever that happens to be. I think we need some good facilities. There's no nightlife, no nighttime economy for young people anymore. There's very little places for people to go. We should have a facility that can have good bands, good comedians, and good variety. And I think that's probably the best place is Fort Regent.
Thank you. The Public Service Ombudsman goes back to over 100 years in Sweden, and it's worked there, and it will provide checks and balances for people who are aggrieved when the people who made the decision are also making judgments. So I think it has room to there. And I was actually promoting a financial services ombudsman before we had one. Regarding Fort Regent, I am a fan. Years ago, we had family membership, and it was very effective. And some of you might remember, we attracted world-class entertainment, individuals and groups. It was really, really positive. We had the BBC broadcasting Saturday Night Special, live time in Jersey at 7, 8 o'clock on a Saturday night. And I think we can do this sort of thing again if we're positive. And I think we should be positive on the fort. There is a cost, but I think there will be a real benefit for this community. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the problem that we encounter with states' complaints is that I'm not sure how many of us would know where to look for the existing complaints process if one has got a problem with the states before it even gets to the complaints board. So we've got to be a lot clear about what the internal complaints process is. We've got to involve islanders in those internal complaints processes more, because people feel as though they've got nowhere to turn to when the state is not looking after them and not hearing their voice. And we're not always very good in government of standing in the shoes of complainants. We've got to get better at that. If we can sort that out, then I think the need for an ombudsman falls away, because the work that the panel does is good. Sometimes it's difficult for a minister to accept it, but we know we have to accept it because it's been impartially and independently adjudicated on. So there are lots of islanders who feel that they've not been heard by government and they've had problems that really have interrupted their lives. We've got to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. Coming at the end, it's always difficult to find something new to say. Fort Regent is right. There is a minimum viable product that we've got to provide for. But when we look to the future, it's got to be a site that is available for islanders to go to, but also for tourists. And I think the best way of doing that is probably a public-private partnership. Thank you.
Well, clearly we are accountable to the public, and the public should have redress if we're not doing things properly. My first thoughts would be we look at the current system, make improvements where we can, make it more accountable, more accessible. Failing that, then we need to look at other ways of doing it and bringing an ombudsman, and looking at the best way to do that and looking at other jurisdictions would seem to be the most logical thing. Fort Regent, I was talking at the candidates fair the other day to 5 young people who basically said the current plans don't reflect what they want. So whatever we put up there needs to really reflect what the community wants as a whole, and then we need to look at how we fund that. And I really think it's better off using people who know how to deliver rather than the government trying to do it themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. It's everyone that's answered those questions. Coming to this side, we'll take a question from the lady in the peach top, please. And the lady in the striped top will come to you next. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rosie Hooby. I live in St Brelade's. Whilst we're waiting for the hospital, how will you maintain decent staff and consultants coming in? And also, there seems to be a lot of people on private health and a lot of people that don't have private health. How will you maintain a fair waiting list for consultants and hospital care?
Thank you. And the lady in the striped top here, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Fiona Walker. I live at Waynay. I'd like to ask the candidates, in an island where more and more people are relying on food banks, why have we poured in money, millions, into projects like Broad Street, like the crossing of New Street and King Street, like the bus lane at the end of Gloucester Street? We've spent millions on those. What will candidates do to ensure that money isn't wasted in this fashion in the future?
Thank you. Mark, we're going to start with you at that end of the table and come down. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think, frankly, very difficult for a non-specialist to answer that. Clearly, we've got to actually run a health system effectively. Any health system has a mixture of public and private sector, and it's about good management. I don't claim to know all the answers, and that's one I can't give you a better answer because I'm just not sufficiently experienced about. On the various roadworks, what's puzzled me about Broad Street is the time that it's taken. I've been involved in similar schemes in London, and we would do them in a quarter of the time. So that's one issue. I've also observed that where there is a budget for doing roadworks, the budget will be used. And I think that's the wrong approach for actually doing it. Again, I'm equally baffled by what's being done for buses at the end of the Esplanade. So each project needs to be looked at individually, and there's got to be clear criteria for success. And if it doesn't meet those criteria, you don't do it. But you simply don't use a budget because it happens to be there.
Can I say that my personal experience of the hospital has always been a good one, but I accept that we continually need staff and consultants, and we do have a lot of locums working over here. But one of the ways to get the best staff is to offer the best package. It's expensive to come to Jersey, it's expensive to find suitable accommodation. Even relocating costs a huge amount of money. So I think we need to look seriously at how we relocate people into our health service, because it's our health that they look after, and it's important we have the right people to do that. There's no question we need to continue to spend money on infrastructure. You don't see it, but our drains need a massive amount of investment. I take Fiona's point about some of the infrastructure in town. It's spending a lot of money there. The roads around the island are not in a good condition, and that is saying something. Trying to solve the food bank crisis, if you like, is one of the things I would want to do as Environment Minister, is more local food, more local crops, more local catch on plates, reducing food miles, making our food more sustainable and helping to address the cost of living. Thank you.
Thank you. One thing we've managed to do in the last 18 months is rely less on locums and agency staff, and we've employed a lot more permanent staff. Top of the priority, I know the Health Minister, is getting the waiting list down. So the progress of the health facilities programme, and I very much hope the Health Minister will be announcing the signing of a new hospital contract imminently, but he can update you on that. They all go hand in hand. We should have done this 4 years ago. We lost 4 years, and we're having to borrow at a great increase in interest, but if we delay it any further, it's only going to cost more. But we're heading in the right direction. Food banks reflect the use of food banks in Jersey. One of the first things I did when I became Chief Minister is I visited all of the food banks to get a better understanding of how they were working and why we were seeing increases, and I was surprised at the type of people that were using them. Food banks reflects wider challenges, including low wages, insecure employment, illness, unexpected changes in personal circumstances. The way we fix that is to work closely with the food banks to come up with a strategy that leads to the public's less reliance on them, and that's work we've started to do. Thank you.
Yes, I think I'm just as frustrated at the hospital issue, at the expense, and the fact we still don't have a new hospital. But I have to say, Tom has done great work to finally get us to a place where hopefully things will get moving, and we have to get moving with that now. I spoke to a wonderful woman called Sophie recently who essentially told me that her and a number of people through her association and her foundation cannot access clinical trials just because they're from Jersey. Like, that's shocking, and we need to improve these relationships with the NHS and build the infrastructure and put money in to support these people. It's not fair or okay that we are letting these people slip through our cracks. And if elected, I'd like to push for fairer hospital access for everybody. That's what needs to happen. I'm hoping that a brand new hospital would also attract some brilliant talent as well, because we need good, technology and buildings to attract the talent to the island. I don't think many people would want to work in our current hospital as it is. In terms of food banks and the prioritisation, for me, I do have a skill set around decision-making philosophy and making sure that you stick to the purpose of your decision-making when it comes to spending millions of pounds, like you said. For me, decision-making processes and focusing on the key issues is where we can really focus it and hone in. And I would actually like to introduce some higher accountability measures for ministers who want to spend above certain thresholds. I think that will make us think twice before just spending taxpayers' money.
well, I'm sure the health minister will correct me if I get this wrong, but I'm really pleased with how things are going at the hospital. 10 years ago, we realised we did need 2 hospitals, and then we had a lot of argy-bargy when people wanted to put it on People's Park. For goodness sake, the clue's in the name. And we're now going to have 2 hospitals roughly sorted out the right way, and I'm even more encouraged we're going to remove from responsive medicine to something called preventive medicine. In other words, we try and catch people before they require surgery and other expensive treatments. So yes, I'm in favour. I mean, look, MOT, healthcare. I mean, we look after our cars better in the UK, and so why shouldn't we do that for the local folk? Every 10, 15 years, pop in, get the blood test, get a checkout, and like, yeah, you're okay, functioning beautifully, or no, got a problem here. Oh, what was the other one? So much to talk about. Food banks. I think they're great. Why not? I mean, because supermarkets either chuck the waste in the bin. I'm a big fan of looking for the reduced price section, which I basically hunt down on a regular basis. Fine. Yeah, there's lots of ways we're going to have to sort out cost of living, but one bonus, the more prices go up, the more GST goes up. So that'll help.
Thank you, Guy. Thank you.
Yeah, 2 really big questions. Very briefly, one of the ways we can maintain our services, and it's important to think about the service rather than the people, is not to be too anxious about recruiting people, not recruiting people. If we can't recruit them, move on to the people we can recruit. And services all over the UK and worldwide have adopted that approach. And I'm going to use something, a service like the ADHD service, which is a massively over-demanded service. But other places have moved away from a consultant-led service where we force people through the same gateway and then accept there's a big queue, in having several ways to access services of different types. And that gives a better return on the investment in the staff. Food banks are about poverty. And I think we need an honest discussion about poverty on the island. And one of those things we need to be clear about is where do we spend our money? Now, I'm always anxious being next to the Treasury Minister here, but we are getting windfalls from fuel duty. We are getting windfalls from GST. And I know that some of that money is demanded in other areas which have seen increased costs. But these windfalls can be recycled into alleviating poverty while we're looking at longer term measures that will do that.
To answer those 2 questions, I wish I had a little bit more than 90 seconds. I'm going to put myself as a hostage to fortune and say that I'm very hopeful that we'll sign the hospital contract next week. It's not 100% guaranteed, but we're a hell of a lot closer than we were even 2 weeks ago. How do we cope before the new hospital is built? We're going to have some problems, it's quite true. Hospital occupancy is almost maximised all the time, particularly in the winter. But we, as has been mentioned, we've got £4 million of extra money this year for health prevention, which is, we're hoping will start to keep people well. That's going to take some time to kick in. And we're also doing work on trying to treat people in the community more, to prevent them having to go into hospital and getting them out of hospital sooner and being cared for at home. That's going to take a little bit of extra money, but without the actual facilities, that's what we're going to need to do. I'll touch on public and private health. It is a conundrum, but you've got to bear in mind that the more people that have got private health, the more money the health service makes from that private health care, and that money goes back into treating people and lowering waiting lists for people that are being treated publicly. That's the complication. With regard to food banks and the state of our town, it's difficult because I've never been away and sent home photographs and saying to people, come and visit this place because the town's lousy, but you want to see how much money they're saving. I think we've got to do a lot to uplift our town, to attract people to the island, to grow our economy, to get people spending. And once the economy is working better, there's much more money in the system to avoid people being in food banks. It really is a vicious cycle, and it's hard to break, and it's hard to justify while you're going through the process of doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Your question about health was quite wide-ranging and really technical, but I think we have to remember, as Tom said, that private patients will help subsidise the cost for public patients, for non-private patients, and we just need to make sure that the balance is right and that there isn't too much preference given to one over the other. I think with consultants, it's always difficult. We have to remember that there is a global shortage of consultants in some types of areas. We're competing with Australia, Canada, America. Doctors are very mobile now, and we have to remember that as well. The new hospital will make it easier. And we also have to remember that we just simply cannot give people the breadth and scope of work to maintain their specialism sometimes. If you're going to be a knee specialist, you've got to be doing knees day in, day out, and there aren't enough knees in Jersey. So we always need to think about how we do that. Fiona, I think food banks against infrastructure is always going to be a difficult one. I think there's a big argument that spending money in infrastructure helps boost the town, makes the town more attractive, brings people in, helps them spend money, makes it a better place for everyone. As Minister for Social Security, I found it really distressing that the food bank use is growing. And what we really need to do, and we've been trying to do it for a long time, is really sit down with all the stakeholders and work out exactly why that is. Why, when we've got income support and rental component and all our other elements and all our other benefit payments, people are still falling through those gaps. We need to try and understand that.
So, thank you. Alan. The grey button just once.
Hi. Sorry, that's really loud now, isn't it? Hospitals. I think technology is a way forward. There is going to be more and more remote consulting. We're getting to a point where we're going to be able to go into a booth, be connected up to scanners and things. There'll be a technician, and there'll be a consultant in a completely different location. We'll analyse what we need, and potentially they will be able to operate using robotics. It's already happening in some parts, so why not here? And I think that's the way medicine will go globally. Food banks, when we come to spending on infrastructure, there are essentials. There's nice to have, and there's the shiny, glittery stuff. Obviously, we need to concentrate on the essentials first and work our way up, but we need to maintain a pleasant environment. Otherwise, we won't have a nice place to live. How that affects food banks, I really personally believe we need to look at what the basic minimum is we would expect for everybody living on this island, whether that's a family of 4, a single person, and that's the minimum we expect. Then we look at how we bring in policies around taxation and benefits and other things to make sure everyone's at that level. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very good question, and it's why every time there's been a version of the hospital, I've always voted to progress it, because actually having a hospital building which isn't fit for purpose, whatever iteration it was of the hospital, getting it built so we can attract the clinicians to support islanders with their health condition is fundamental. And I've got to say that I have every confidence in Tom and his team. There are doctors and nurses at the hospital every day pulling out all of the stops despite the building. And I, for one, congratulate them, and I think we should congratulate them, but it is going to be difficult to maintain their motivation whilst they're still in that hospital down there. So Tom has my every support to get that thing built. The point about prioritisation of spending is a really interesting one, because it can seem as though it's a budgeting one, because it might come as a surprise to members in the audience. The Treasury Minister doesn't currently have the control legally to control spending. It's a Council of Ministers thing. So we need to change the law. We need to give the Treasury Minister the ability to be able to properly control spending so that spending can be prioritised for islanders' needs. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to combine the answer by what I've said here. Broad Street and the Esplanade, millions are being spent on fancy paving and landscaping when many roads are cracked and need urgent maintenance and repair. Many millions have been written off on the new hospital project, while hundreds of us have paid into the system for 40 years or more are told they will have to wait up to 2 years for knee and hip operations. This is not a pleasant experience, and so some are using their life savings to relieve daily unbearable pain and loss of physical mobility. This should not be happening in a mature healthcare system. People first. Regarding food banks, about 10 days ago I was in Minden Place, and they've got a shop that gives discounted food to people, which is a type of food bank, I suppose, and there was a queue outside of about 10 people. So I went in and asked the couple that run it, and they said, oh, this is a regular occurrence. We're not open every day, we're open at certain times, but when we're open, people are waiting half an hour before or more. Now that question is, does the income support system work? And we need probably to be asking questions about that. Thank you.
In relation to the private stroke non-private care, when you look at our finance industry, a high number of individuals as part of their package actually get private health care. And in actual fact, if we actually encourage those people to actually use their private health care, then what that does is actually save us money, because that means someone else will be paying for their care. And therefore, we would hope then that those that haven't got private health care, we will be able to afford to have extra people coming in order to be able to have more care for those that don't have it, if that makes sense. Because I think if we get people that have actually got it and don't use it to use it, then others should be able to get theirs quicker, because we should be able to bring in extra people because we'd have extra money. In relation to food banks, as I said earlier, I do actually think we need to consider our resilience, because we should have or should be able to produce more food, basic food, in relation to potatoes and carrots and vegetables and everything else, in order that we could actually be helping our population and giving them those items, instead of always having to say that we're going to bring it in because it costs more. So I would actually like to look at the whole thing in relation to our resilience in relation to food.
Yes, my personal experience of the hospital has been an absolutely fantastic one, and I'd just like to say that on the side of private and public medical care, my experience from a trial perspective, so in order to go on a trial you have to go to the UK. There are various reasons for that, one being that there aren't the emergency capabilities if the trial goes wrong here on the island. I've been an advocate of bringing trials over here, and that was one of the reasons why we can't have them here. But there's a two-tier system. If you're private, you get one. If you're not, it's an absolute lottery. And what I'm worried about is the fact that very, very few public cases for trials get through to the trial in the UK. On the case of the food banks, if we look at cutting costs, and one way of cutting costs is through preventative care. If we can get the cost of poor health down by 5%, that will save us nearly 30 million quid. So that's 30 million quid that we can provide for basic services and looking at the social problems that cause these food banks.
I want to say that, ask a question as well, actually. How is our medical practitioners providing us a holistic health and wellness service? How holistic is our medical service? Because it seems to me that almost everything goes to the medical. Is all our health problems solved by the GP? How holistic are our GPs to identify the problems that are happening or the main hospital to identify the problem and say, look, some of this problem actually needs a therapist. And that alone could help elevate the queues that we have in the hospital. So I think our government that will enforce a holistic health service will help us redistribute certain services that needs to be sorted by a different professional that doesn't actually sit in the general hospital. And talking about food banks, I come from a poor country, Uganda. It's a third world country. When I come and see this happening in a first world country, I'm questioning, why is this place called a first world country? Why is this place called a first? When we have so many rich people that cannot share their resources with those that do not have. When we have a government that taxes people mercilessly, when you work so hard, I've been doing night shifts. When I come to the end of the month, I just get a quarter of what I earn. What's that?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. If I understand the question, it's, what should we do in the meantime? And I think there are a number of things that we could focus on. It's not very easy when you're one of the last ones talking, because most other people have mentioned them. But I think one of the first things we need to develop is a workforce strategy, and that would include some strategy for key worker housing. And also we need a sustainable funding model for health, something that we don't actually have currently. We still need to continue to invest in our local brilliant staff to allow them to deliver the best service possible. And of course we need to focus on early intervention and prevention. Picking up the area about private health insurance, once upon a time you actually got tax relief on your private health insurance contributions, and there might be some merit in considering that. I think the second question is really about getting state spending under control in general. And I think that is a real problem across the board. Do we really need to be digging up the corner of the Esplanade to reduce a bus journey coming out west by 2.5 minutes when it's going to cost £1.5 million? We've heard at other hustings that people are using food banks. We do have a child poverty issue here. Perhaps we should be redirecting that money to the charities who are actually working on the ground with these families and people. Lovely charities like Caring Cooks, the Grace Trust, St Vincent de Paul. They're the ones that experience poverty, and we should be supporting them.
Thank you. That was such a good answer. I feel I can't add much to it, but I'll give it a go. The lady who asked about the hospital, retaining staff, crucially important and really difficult when the facilities are not up to scratch. Morale is clearly an issue. I feel particularly strongly about the hospital because in 2017, when I was the Treasury Minister, we had a solution just about on the table for 466 million. Ladies and gentlemen, I got a lot of abuse for the cost of that hospital at that time, 466 million, and it didn't proceed because of planning. That's what stopped it. And then we had reviews and reviews and reviews, and £100 million later, and we still haven't got a hospital, or we nearly have. I've got every confidence in Tom Binney there to deliver on the hospital. But that's what we need, and that's how we're going to retain staff, which is crucially important. Frontline staff are wonderful, I might add, at the hospital. I've had personal experience through family. They give a fabulous service, and they should be supported in every way possible. The packages need to be right. The cost of living in Jersey is another matter that makes it more difficult. Fiona, food banks. I was quite shocked to find out the number of people accessing them and how many have actually accessed them in recent times. We need to do a lot more to try and get people away from needing the food banks. It's a terrible shame for the island. It's a bad indictment of the state that we're in, that so many people have to use them, and relatively well-paid people. It's about a strong economy, better jobs, getting inflation down, government's fees being reduced and frozen. All these things can help.
Jersey politics has been plagued for the last decade with the false starts and U-turns on new hospital projects, which has served as a huge and expensive distraction in our politics from dealing with the services themselves. And that's why it's so important that Tom can get that contract signed, and the next government must not U-turn on that again. We must get it delivered and then refocus our efforts on the service itself. And that must include reducing health inequalities, because the situation in a wealthy society where if people can't afford to go private, they simply have to suffer for longer is not acceptable. And what's also not acceptable in Jersey is poverty. Many of the food banks are based in my community. I work closely with them. And I think they would say that they don't see the issue as going hand in hand with spending on public realm. They see it as a systemic issue that leads to poverty in Jersey. And we have to deal with that at its root. That means having a strong economy where the prosperity we generate is genuinely shared fairly around the island and not simply held by a few people at the top. It means getting more people out of rental stress and dealing with the cost pressures that they face in their lives. And that, I think, is the best way to approach it, not by simply cutting one budget to increase handouts. We've got to get to the root of the problem.
Thank you. With the time that we have left, I will take 2 more questions, but if the candidates agree, can you all answer in 1 minute? And we take 2 questions. Is that going to be too tight? It's just otherwise we're going to run too late. You think you can make it? Or if you can try and... okay, I will go to 1 minute 30, but we'll just try and keep it... Yeah, okay. Okay, all right. Okay, questions. Gentleman in the beige jacket here.
My name is Giuseppe Mauro.
Hold it nice and close.
My name is Giuseppe Mauro. I've been on the island for 54 years. When I come over here, there was an immigration law that we had to stay
like
4
this.
years.
If you hold the mic like this at this angle. If you could start again.
We had to stay 4 years in... I haven't learned. Okay. We had to stay 4 years under permission of the immigration in hospitality. In 1976, I started my own business. I never regret to be in Jersey, coming from Bermuda. That's when I found out Jersey existed. But now the immigration doesn't get any respect at all when somebody is allowed to stay. First it was 6 months, then it became 9 months. Now they can stay 3 years and they got to live at the island. I don't think they get any rewards on merit.
So can you just, what's your question?
The question is, what do you think about immigration at the moment?
Okay, views on immigration.
Yeah.
Thank you. That gentleman over there in the blue. Thank you, Wendy. Get your step count in this evening. Thank you. Are we due for the live stream, I'm afraid, sir? If you could tell us your name and where you live, thank you, before you begin.
Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Julian Bernstein. I live in the parish and I'm chair of governors of this wonderful school. If you're successful, would you be interested in standing as the Minister of Education, and what would be your priorities, and not just better education for our young people?
Okay, we're going to start with Elaine and go up here. Thank you.
I seem to be starting first again. Giuseppe, my story is not that dissimilar to yours. I came here in 1996 and was secondment for a year, and I've never left, and I've never regretted it, because what I always say is Jersey's been good to me. It's given me a good living. I love living here. It's a beautiful island. It's safe. We do need to think about how we do need to address immigration, because for a long time we've gone on the basis that people are just wanting to pile into Jersey. We're in a much more competitive environment. We need to bring people here now. We need to find fair ways of getting people in, making sure that people who do come here to work are treated fairly. I heard horror stories when I came here about where people were living. I was very fortunate. But we do need to make sure that we're bringing the people here that we need to do the jobs we need filled, and that they are treated well when they get here. Julian, I'm not sure I would stand for education, because I'm not sure I don't have children, and I'm not sure I have a great deal of expertise on education. I feel very strongly about it. Mark talked about social mobility. I am a walking example of social mobility. Education is a big part of that. We need to make sure that all children are educated to the very fullest of their own ability. If they want to go to university, we need to try and support that and then encourage them to come back when they're completed the degree. We also need to work on apprenticeships and skilling really for lifelong. I'm sure everybody's going to say something similar. Thank you.
As far as immigration is concerned, it was a fairly broad question. It's not something that I'm extremely close to, but I know that we have got measures in place that change over time, and I just think we need to keep those under constant review, because I think we do need to treat people with respect when they come to the island. As far as education is concerned, is it something that I'd make a beeline for if I get re-elected? Probably not. The last 2 years I've been very, very consumed with health, and that's a particular interest to me. So I can't really comment specifically about education and the specific problems with it, because I really have been 2.5 years very, very focused on health. So I think I'll leave the sort of the detailed comments to others. Thank you.
So if we're going to talk sensibly about immigration, we need to talk sensibly about a population strategy and what immigration is for. And for that, we need a vision of what our island is about to become in the next 10 to 20 years. So that will inform the immigration strategy we have and the numbers that we need and the skills we need. In terms of education, I wouldn't be standing for Minister for Education, but if I was, what I'd want to be doing as priority is understanding the balance between academic education and practical trades-based education. And again, in terms of the importance of the finance industry, our young people are very lucky. There's a range of jobs currently in that sector. But that sector also benefits enormously from a balanced economy, where we have people with trades who are doing hands-on work that actually is very resistant to AI. The kind of trades that we want there will be a huge opportunity for people in the future, and I hope we can do that.
I'm not sure the ministerial job that I really would like actually exists. It would be minister without portfolio, and the reason is the problems are right across the board. I'd want to be poking my nose into everything and not be tied down to one particular department. That's happened to me already. And it was 3 years of obsessive dedication. I was even dreaming policies I had to write down in the middle of the night. No, ministerial jobs can be unbelievably difficult, and you're just stuck with your department, whereas I see issues right across the board. I'll give you one good example. Teachers are trying to keep mobile phones out of schools right now. I'm not entirely sure why, because I'm impressed with smartphones. You have the information of the planet at your fingertips. Why do we need a cinema at Fort Regent when you can look at Netflix on your smartphone? These things are amazing. And if they could do education as well, it would completely shift the way we teach in schools. I can't stand all that learning by rote that people had to do at my age. Goodness me, I learnt how to do handwriting with a fountain pen. That's all got to change. And we now have technology. Are the teachers up for it? We'll find out.
Okay, so I think to answer the first question, I think we need to think carefully about immigration. You know, I think there's a lot of people who are attracted to this island and will be for years to come. I think we need to balance immigration with attracting and retaining our young people as well, so not going too far in one direction. We need to recognise the types of industries that are going to require immigration in the future. I read recently we're employing 80% of people we are employing in healthcare to look after the elderly are not from this island. So that's a huge opportunity around immigration and maybe people that we can attract, but then also equally, what are we doing for our young people in terms of creating packages to bring them back to this island for what is going to be a really essential industry. Education. So I won't be stepping forward as an education minister, but I am passionate about it, obviously, because I've got 2 young children. And if coming from a sports perspective, because that is my bag, I think it's really important that the messages that we are sending our children around sport and physical literacy is key. We are on the brink of AI and future, technology, and we need to build resilient people. So that means they need to be healthy people, and that is why I'm so passionate about getting PE back into primary schools so we can invest in our kids in the first 10 years. Take care of the first 10 years, and the next 20 will take care of themselves from a physical literacy perspective.
Immigration has been absolutely vital to Jersey over the years, over the centuries. And we welcome people with specialist skills to come and work in various industries, from hospitality right through to the top end of our medical and health profession. We need to make sure, though, we, as Serena said, we find the right balance with our population policy. We've got challenges coming down the road. Our birth rate is falling significantly. The good news is we're all going to live longer. I'm delighted about that. But that means we're going to see falling numbers in schools. In the next 10 years, there'll be, I think, 1,000 less children per year in our school system. Huge challenges coming along. We have a fantastic education system, dedicated teachers, brilliant schools like Les Quennevais. But what we need to do is make sure that we get the planning right now for this change in the birth rate and the pupil numbers. I'll do any job the states want to give me if I get re-elected. Thank you, Julian, for your question.
Giuseppe, thank you for your question. It gives me the chance to say that I know a number of people who came to the island in the 60s and the 70s and have helped make it a wonderful place that it is in hospitality and service industries. They have served this island really well. It's unbelievable. 5 years ago, we were trying to stop people coming into this island, increase the population. Now, we're doing the exact opposite because we need more people to come here. In another 10 years, the aging population is going to make sure that 35,000 people are retired. We need more people in work. We need those people to help pay social security benefits to keep the island running. It's really vital that we bring people in, and I've explained how we might do that. Julian, your question about Education Minister, not for me, I'm afraid. I'm very much wedded to the Environment Ministry, and if I'm successful in being elected, I would very much hope to put myself forward for that role. But what I would say, when we ask children about what they value in Jersey, we know the environment's always top of their list. They love the beaches, the coast, they like to cycle, to run, to walk, they value the environment. But one thing I will do, if I'm re-elected, and if nobody else does it, I will bring a proposition to do something about the effects of social media on children in our schools and in our society. That really needs to be addressed. Thank you.
On immigration, my great-grandfather came here in 1875 to dig potatoes, and I'm very grateful he did, or I wouldn't be here otherwise. And as other speakers have said, we've gone from thinking the world wants to come here, how can we keep them out, to an understanding that we actually need them rather more than they need us. We have to compete to get people. I think we treat immigrants to this island unfairly. On education, this is my passion. I spent 3 years as chair of governors of an inner city academy that was in special measures. The person who learnt most in those 3 years was me. It gave me a real understanding of some of the issues. On our education system, I think we have about the most uninclusive system in the world. Selection at 14, I think, is an appalling policy, and I think it has to go. 2 of the top performing schools in terms of value added are state schools, Quennevais and Haute Valley. I think we need to look longer term at whether the state schools can have their own sixth forms. We need more higher education on island, not a University of Jersey, that would take forever. We've already got a number of institutions. 20% of students live at home in the UK. Economic reasons, health, housing. We can't offer that here. We can't offer the same courses. We need a massive expansion in on-island higher education to keep our young people here. And we need to have top-performing secondary schools that can run all the way from 11 to 16 and ideally 18. Thank you.
These two questions actually go hand in hand, because if we have well-educated young people and incentives for them to stay in Jersey, then obviously that reduces our reliance on inward migration. But I think it's really important that we do not let the kind of toxic debate that we're seeing in other places like the UK about immigration filter down to Jersey. We don't need that. We are a respectful and inclusive society, and we can have these debates at a sensible level, and at the forefront of that must be treating everyone who comes to Jersey to work here with dignity and respect. How many of us in the room have roots through immigrants? My grandparents were immigrants from Brittany, and we must not see the kind of debates that we've seen in the UK over this. Julian, I won't stand for Education Minister, but what I know is that young people have told us that they are passionate about seeing better options post-16. There is evidence that the Education Department's collated on that, and I think we need to listen to them. And that means improving options for apprenticeships, vocational training. But you mentioned the fantastic facilities here at Les Quennevais. Well, our post-16 system needs that as well. Highlands College ought to be, at the very least, revamped, but ideally a new campus entirely, and that's something that I'd very much like to see.
Thank you, Giuseppe. Your question first. Hasn't the picture changed as far as immigration is concerned over the years? More recently, as was mentioned a moment ago, we're finding, certainly since the pandemic, more people have left the island. Numbers are decreasing, and actually with an aging population, we have real problems in terms of businesses recruiting the skilled staff they need. We need to attract people to come to live in the island, but the cost of living is high. That's another issue that needs to be looked at. The other factor is that the industries like agriculture, hospitality, with the differing lengths of licenses that are available, they bring people in for short term, and then they have to train them up, and then they go and they have to train up more people. It becomes costly for business. That's not really looking after the business sector in the way that it should. There is some adjustment going on, but it needs to happen faster, I think, to deal with that. Julian, fabulous school, clearly very well run. Congratulations to the chair. I have to say that the schools generally in the island perform fairly well from what I can see, but higher education is an area I think I would focus. By the way, I'm not interested. Should I be offered an education role? I don't think it's my skill set. But nevertheless, I do think that higher education is something, and degree courses, expanded degree courses in the island, tied to our local economy, our local industry is really important. Finance, compliance, marine, agriculture, those are all areas we could bring students in, stimulate the economy, make a more vibrant environment, not just for our own students, our own young people, but also those that come to the island. It would be very helpful for the tourism industry.
Thank you, Giuseppe, for the question. My very first job for the civil service in 1987 was working for the Bureau des Étrangers, which was the immigration department, and it was administering Portuguese work permits. And they were for 6 months or 9 months, and then you had to return for 3 months, because the idea was you couldn't get your housing qualifications. So we were at a time when we didn't want to overgrow the population, but now, as we've heard, we are at a completely different situation. After Brexit, after COVID, we no longer need to keep people out, we need to bring people in. And one of the reasons when I was Home Affairs Minister for my extending the 9-month permit to the 3-year permit was for a very specific reason. It wasn't only to support the hospitality industry, it was also to give those people the opportunity to train, so they no longer needed to be on a temporary visa, they could be on a skilled visa, they could then gain their housing qualifications and they could bring their families to Jersey. And I think we need to see more of an expansion of that scheme. When it comes to education, I have a PhD in criminology. Higher education is an area of my expertise. I don't agree with Mark when he says we need a massive expansion of higher education. I think it's actually a very good thing for our young people to go away if they want to gain some life experience and then come back. I would advocate, however, the establishment of a higher education institute, a centre of excellence, which deals with centres of excellence elsewhere globally.
Taking an example of the Kenyan community in Jersey, they recently advocated for a reform, several reforms actually, and among which includes immigration flexibility, family reunification, social protection, recognitions of qualification from their home country, and last but not least, hate crime. You might be aware, you might have seen my face on the back of the police van for about 5 years, trying to join in advocating against hate crime. The immigration community, indeed, as an immigrant myself, I've suffered a lot of hate crime scenarios, people attacking me just for the fact that I'm a black man. But I know I'm a very handsome black man, so I don't know what's your problem. However, talking about education, the first profession I did in my, as a 19-year-old was a primary school teacher. I was teaching young people with hearing impairment. I did sign language as well as young people who have hearing capabilities. But I would say that gap year for young people in Jersey, young people need to go out of Jersey. Jersey is a small place. We cannot think they should just remain here. As a Minister of Education, which I don't really want to say I will put myself forward for, but I will contribute to say that we need gap years. We should fund gap years for our young people to come to Uganda. Let them come and see how we live on minimal provisions, and yet we survive as well. Thank you.
Yes, I feel terrible about the word hate crime. Just hearing you there, it makes my stomach turn to think that anyone on the island, due to their colour, receives hate. We really must keep that in check. My personal situation is that we have full-time carers. I went through a long-term care application for my wife a year ago, and we have 3 ladies from Zimbabwe, and 2 have psychology degrees, and 1 has a degree in nursing. So this is the caliber of people that we're getting here. We're very, very lucky. I would say that. In addition to this, I came to the island myself in 2018, so I'm an import. I came here on my own merits. I applied for a business license. I was turned down. I got it on appeal. So the process is very, very strict. We do need people here. We need the skills. We need the services. So moving on to the other question that about standing as Minister for Education, I wouldn't take the post, but through my experience of social enterprise, which I've advocated when I brought the business to the island, I think what we can do for young people is, young people are very concerned about the world they're growing up in, and if we empower them through social enterprise, give them some...
You're right, there's been a significant increase in work permits from roughly 350 to over 3,000 in the last couple of years. And there's various styles of work permits. And as Helen's already said, the purpose of the 3-year one was actually so that people would get developed in order that they could actually stay. And I think maybe that's something that we actually need to look at in relation to what kind of qualifications would be able to could be provided in order that those people could actually get those qualifications to be able to progress their career and be able to stay here. We've sort of pushed the boundaries significantly over the last 4 years, and I think it's important to continue to do that and continue to monitor and see what we need to do, and we need to look at this as a whole. In relation to Education Minister, as a police officer, I qualified as a trainer and taught police officers both practical skills and also law and legislation. However, teaching police officers probably isn't quite the same as teaching children, young people in schools. So I'm not totally convinced that I would be qualified.
Regarding immigration, we do really need people. And I can give you an example of that. About 3 weeks ago, at St. Brelad's College, I got the 6:30 bus to the airport, and I didn't think there'd be anybody on it, and it was actually packed. And there's 3 care homes on that route, and that's why there were so many people on it. And there were people who had come to work for us, providing care for people. Regarding Minister of Education, I don't think so. I was a governor of Granville School for 10 years, so I am very supportive of education, and I've got family members who work in education. If elected, I'd be more interested in the Public Accounts Committee for reasons I stated earlier, because I have some very real concerns about the spending on information technology, digitalisation and other stuff. And Guernsey have just lost £21 million on an IT system for income tax that doesn't work. It's Guernsey, so that's the good news. Thank you.
In my experience, Jersey is a welcoming community, but it is fair to say that we're not getting our welcome right in every situation. The world is a more competitive place, and we therefore have to be more welcoming. And I think that the work permit system, which we had to follow post-Brexit, is not necessarily working. I'm not sure if that's a fire alarm. Okay. I wouldn't want to keep you here talking through a fire. And we therefore, it's not working for employers and it's not working always for those work permit holders. So I think a review is the right thing to do, because we've got to get our welcome right across the board. I wouldn't personally choose to be Minister of Education, but it's a well-known fact that anybody standing for public office should be prepared to stand and do the job that their colleagues think they're best fitted to. So I'm not sure how I'm going to manage that. But of course, there are many issues on the Education Department's and new Minister's agenda. And I absolutely agree, an increase in vocational training, probably at Highlands on a new campus, is critical. We need to prepare our young people for AI. We've got this reducing birth rates. We've got to think about primary schools. We've got to have greater choice of subjects, not only at GCSE, but at A level as well, and greater coordination there. That's not to mention neurodiversity and protecting children.
I'll be brief. An island immigration policy, we need to develop one that meets the needs of the island, so it's flexible enough to bring people in when we need them to work. It needs to be fair and inclusive and just, and we really need to be looking after seasonal workers. A lot of business over here rely on seasonal workers. They're essential, but we need to look after them. And as for Minister for Education, actually my background is in early years childcare, and I've done work with special needs. My aim actually was, and I hope to get the job of Minister for Children and Families, but if education was offered me, I would take it gladly. I know a lot of teachers. I've worked around education, so I would happily take that on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's everyone that's answered the questions. Thank you to the candidates. Thank you to all of you for your time this evening. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for asking your questions. Just a couple of things to mention. If you'd like to get in touch with any of the candidates, then you can do so, and you can find their contact details on the vote.je website. Postal votes need to be received by the GREF by 12 noon on Sunday, the 7th of June. Don't forget that you can vote early. So if you're going on a holiday, then St Paul's Centre in St Helier is going to be open between the 26th of May and also the 1st of June. So you can do that. Election day, of course, though, is Sunday the 7th. Polling stations are open from 8 a.m. in the morning until 8 p.m. in the evening. Please take your photo ID with you. That's very important. You can get further information in the manifestos that should now have landed, and also on the vote.je website. For now, though, from all of us here, if you'd like to join another Hustings, please do. But for now, have a very good evening. And I'm just going to pass over to Elaine. It is customary for one of the candidates to say the final words.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming along tonight. Thank you very much for your questions. I'm sorry we couldn't answer more of them. It's a function of the time and number of us that there are. I'd like to thank Hannah for keeping everything in track so beautifully and timelessly. And I'd like to thank our AV people for doing our recording and live streaming. So thank you all very much. And we are just about finishing on time. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Thank you.